Okay folks, today I'm going to work with Chinaco, and for those of you that don't know, what we're doing is we've raised this colt. So some of you have seen him ever since he was born, and the idea was to document making a bridle horse. So we're taking it from day one on. And I got to clear the table a little bit. There's a guy that's having hell catching his horse, and even in a round pen, so there's something wrong. And I told him to rope it, and he says he chases it around with a flag a couple laps. And there's two chapters there. There's hooking on when you flag a horse, then step back and they come to you. And then now, if you go in with a flag and you want to catch them, then they think maybe you're going to drive them. And I'm not at the guy's place, so it's hard for me to tell. But the sure thing I do know is that if you rope them around the neck and bring them in, what you got to know is that swinging your arm as your hand is up. And later on, a horse will relate to your hand being up, and that means to come in. And they'll separate. But roping is a surefire way of getting a horse to come in. And you can pull and release. Pull and release. Then the horse starts coming to you. So now it figures it out. And after how many ever times it takes to rope them, you get the loop on them anywhere and they'll come to you. So a lot of the times people tell us things, but I don't know the person or the horse or the situation other than what's told to me on that computer deal, and that's kind of hard to do. But this is what I do know. Pressure and release. Pressure, pressure, release. Pressure, release. Pressure, release, pressure, release, pressure, release. That's how you get a horse to come in. Now I know if you're having trouble, your horse isn't standing around like this one, but I'm not going to make this horse go berserk just to teach a lesson. Now I'm going to show you the other thing. That's driving a horse with a flag or a rope or whatever it is you want to use. You get them moving. There's your flag. You get them moving, then you raise your hand and walk away and get them to come to you. They call that hooking on. Well, I know for you guys at home, you're thinking, well, hell, if I had that horse, it'd be easy. Well, this horse didn't do this when he was born. So you got to take the time to rope him as many times as you need to. And then when you're flagging a horse, I'm going to show you if you want a horse to come in the flagging world, I'm going to show you how to set it up. Here's a horse leaving. Now I've got my flag going, right? Got my flag going. The way to get him to come in is the same time you stop the flag, you step in the eye. It's like that. When you step in the eye, the horse learns to come in, and later on, you'll get him moving. Get him moving. Raise your hand, step in the eye, and drop your hand. So if that helps, I hope it does, but that's what it's all about. Now, the thing about getting a horse in the round pen and flagging them before you get on, or making them run around to get the edge off, that's a misnomer. All you're doing is making them stronger and resentful. So if you would need them to get the edge off, then catch them and untrack them on the ground. Do some groundwork. But running around the round pen is chaos. That is not a smart thing to do with a horse. You're going to turn him into a very tough, resentful animal. So don't do it. Round pen has a reason, but don't use it as a contempt. Thank you. I mean, I'm about to do something different, okay? So I'll show you what something different looks like to a horse, because they get used to the same thing all the time. That's curiosity of an animal. Now, that's the first time he's seen it, so it's not like I had him sleep with it. So what I'm doing today, folks, is it's time for Compañero here to Chinaco, excuse me, to step up to the next level. And what it means is I'm going to start packing him. And it automatically tells you that I'm going to get him used to things on his back. But what the second part of this deal, I'm going to show you why I really want to pack him. And to me, it's personally very important. So the blanket is the blanket. Just put it on. Yeah, he's starting to grow a little bit. He's growing up higher. He's like a Holstein. He's getting taller with no frame. But most of my horses, like my Aztecas, they were 5 before they started to get some bulk to them. Muscle definition and stuff like that. So I'm not worried about him yet. He's still got plenty of time. And of course, once I get to riding him and get going, that muscle's going to come on fast. But I have noticed one thing, is that the definition here is starting to come in on this horse, so that's pretty neat. Of course, that's genetic, but I mean, it's starting to show. Now, if you noticed, I've done the front cinch, the breast collar, and not the back cinch. I'll save that till last. The reason being, I want to be able to tighten this front cinch enough for this saddle to stay on, and for him to make it. And today, that's what's going to keep the saddle on. Turn him around. There's the bind they get in, what you just saw. When you turn them, that's when the whole gut swells out. And if there's going to be a problem, that's when it happens, is when you bend them. That's one reason why we do what we do. Of course, you already know I don't use a britching. Now, he gets to do whatever he wants. This is the same way I saddle a colt when I start him. I get the saddle on, then I let them sort it out. And the goal is for him to walk, trot, and lope both directions. And there's a myth about a back cinch, and I'm going to show you. If you start a colt with a tight back cinch, he'll be good for the rest of his life. If you start a colt without a back cinch and then someday you decide to put it on, that's when it all falls apart. That's your fault. All you got to do is, you people that like history, like me, you look back at the old Paniolo horses, And the Hawaiian cowboys had them perching crosses, and their back cinch was tight and back just like a saddle bronc horse. And there was a reason for that. Now I'm just going to quit doing it, exhale, and say you're fine. Now here's the mistake. I'm going to check the cinches. You don't check the cinches without the halter on. Take the time to put the halter back on to check them. And I don't hopefully need to explain why, but I'm just telling you it's pretty smart. It's not a good feeling with a left hind in your femur. Okay, now it's time. Walk, trot, low both ways. Stay off the rail. Now there's a 50% deal to me. Half of it a horse comes in because they're wanting you to save them. The other half is because they're wanting you to save them. So that's kind of the partnership I want with a horse. Now I want to show you the real reason why I personally am going to pack. And this is part of the bridle horse deal. This is going to help me teach this horse to hobble anywhere really well. And you'll see why. Now this is a rope. It's 12, 13 or 14 feet long. It's climbing rope with a ring tied in it. Now, I run the rope over the head, cross it with the halter, and then run the end through it. Now this is no different than a noose. It's like a lariat. Now I take it and go between the strands of the rope halter and out the front. The strands help keep things from climbing up the sides. Now, what this means to me, and where I'm headed, is that when I'm on my saddle horse and I'm packing this horse, as soon as my horse starts to move, this horse needs to move with it. I don't want this lead rope to come tight. Anybody that teaches a horse to pack off of a halter like this without using a chain, a lot of times you'll teach them to drag because they get real dull on that halter. Well, he's been roped enough to know to give to it. He just has to transition that point. So now when I lead him and that throat latch comes tight, he's going to come forward. Right there. Instead of hanging back. So that's actually why I am going to pack this horse. And my goal is to be able to tie another knot as we progress. This is no different than the evolution of the hackamore. Because I'll tie a knot here one day, and now it can't slide. Now I put this back through here and I go again. Now I'm leading again. It's not a choke rope anymore, it's just a rope. And that'll bring me that evolution of like I'm wanting. I want to feel. When I leave, I need the horse to leave with me. Now if you'll notice, with me messing around with the halter and stuff, the pack saddle isn't all that big a deal anymore. And I know everybody says automatically, well, hell, if I had all the time you did, it wouldn't be a problem either. Well, okay. I'm not going to make excuses for my horse doing a good job. The fact is, I didn't put this on until I felt he was ready. Okay? when he was ready. About a week ago, I went down and caught this horse, and the way that he presented himself, he had that demeanor that just tells you there is no doubt in your mind. He's saying, okay, what do you want to do? That was a change. That's one of the 17 reasons I didn't get on him as a 2-year-old. So anyway, this is the way it looks, and then I'll introduce Panyards and we'll just get him packing. Folks, there's something else you got to know about me, is that I came in the corral this morning. In fact, when at the breakfast table, just like where the roundup starts, I already knew the pack saddle was going to go on, the horse was going to be fine. If there was any wrinkles, I'll deal with it. But in my mind, I already had the saddle on him. So I think that really helps with your attitude going into something like this. And have it done before you start and be prepared for the worst. But don't expect the worst going in, because you'll get the worst. So it's a mental attitude. And for the would-be one of the guys that want riding jobs, there's a deal. When you make a circle, that's when you go out with a crew and you get around a bunch of cattle and bring them in. That's called making a circle. Or if you're going out to do by yourself, you can make a circle. Cowboys don't like to be redundant. They try to make a circle when they go work. So the short story is that whoever's leading the circle, and I say the word whoever because like when I was a cow boss and I took a crew to some man's camp, I didn't lead the circle. The camp man led the circle. That's out of respect because it's his country. You handed it to him and he's responsible for it. So that meant I followed him. All right, so whoever's leading the circle, you're heading out across country. There's 6, 4, 8, whatever, people. The one big rule is to never let your horse's nose go past the stirrup of the man leading the circle. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The number one reason is because he can turn left and right without having to tell you to get the hell out of the way. The other one is if you got some old cranky guy like me and mumbles, you got to be close enough to hear what he has to say about where he's going to drop you off or whatever he's got to say. Most of them don't say anything until you get to where you're going, then they peel you off. And I've mentioned it before, but some of you might have missed it. But when it went on to making a circle, I've gone out with 12 guys, and the first guy dropped off, sits on the hill, and takes a nap and waits. And the perfect gather is when everybody comes into the rodeer at the same time. Once a year that happens, and luckily I've been in on it a few times, and it's worth $1 million to see all those cattle come in, walking, and all the riders coming in, quiet, and you've just got a herd of cattle standing there. That's worth $1 million, but it all starts off with the respect for the guy leading the circle. And when I was in Arivaca, the crew was all vaqueros, except for me. And that's where the word buckaroo originates. Get it? Vaqueros, these were Mexican cowboys. Buckaroo, white cowboy. That's how it kind of happened as far as I know. Anyway, when we went out to make a circle, we had a man named Emmanuel, and he was high 70s then. And the young man that was the boss, the vaquero, when we got to where we were going, he asked Emmy where he wanted to go. In other words, every ranch I was ever on, they just said, you go there, you go there, you go there. And Emmy picked, I think he said La Ultima that time I was with him, the last one to be dropped off, which would put him next to the boss. And the point is that out of respect in the vaquero world, if he would have told Emmy to drop him off at the first place, it might have hurt Emmy's feelings thinking that he's too old, so he didn't want him to ride too far. And if he dropped him off at the last place, it might have got Emmy because he's stoved up and stiff and didn't want to ride that far. So that's why you ask the old viejo where he wants to go. And I've led a lot of circles where a guy will ride up to me and he'll say, could you cut me to the outside? He'd ask first. Well, he's riding some horse that really needs to see some country. Meaning needs to see some country. And he's got a reason for wanting to go to the backside. So that is acceptable in the etiquette of the cowboy world. So just remember, don't pass the stirrup and be quiet. Thank you.